Have you ever wondered what is going on in your brain when you get triggered? Have you ever wondered what causes that feeling of shallow breathing, that heart racing in your chest? The truth is, we all struggle with triggers, and it's part of the universal human experience to feel stress and anxiety. I wish it wasn't true, but it is. If any of you can relate to this, go ahead and give me a sparkle finger. I can feel it through the technological ether. And I want you to know that you're in the right spot. Today's Thursday Tickle is about understanding our emotional triggers. And what I mean by that is you're really going to be able how to discover how our brain responds to stress and anxiety by the end of this Thursday Tickle. So for those of you who are new, hi, I'm Des, and I'm really excited to be talking to you about emotional triggers because for years I really struggled with them. I had explosive anger, panic attacks, and honestly, it didn't take a lot to kind of set me back into a moment of trauma or resentment, guilt, rage, all of the emotions. I have experienced them. But today I'm going to be sharing with you how the brain responds to that stress, anxiety, and really to those emotional triggers. Because when we understand what is happening in our brain, then we can have a better understanding of how to navigate it. It also gives a lot of power and choice in knowing what is going on in that time in our lives. When we're going into that place of fight, flight, or freeze, we can really detach ourselves from the chemical response that's going on. For me, that was so powerful to take that breath and say, whew, okay, I understand now what is happening in my brain. I could visualize my amygdala getting activated, my prefrontal cortex making all sorts of sounds. But don't worry, I'll talk to you about that. And so if you are ready, go ahead and drop a yes into the chat. Even if you're watching this in the replay, let me know that you're ready because I know that emotional triggers can be really heavy. And I feel like this sounds like a pun, but triggers can be triggering. And I know that. So just know that I'm here to support you in whatever way I can. I'm going to be talking about the brain today in a fun little zoo metaphor, because I know that one way to really make triggers maybe a little less triggering is to talk about them in a way that's fun, explorative, and easy to digest. So that being said, it's time for our Thursday tickle topic, understanding our emotional triggers, the science of emotional triggers. So when we're getting triggered, I want you to imagine that your brain is like a zoo. Yep, you heard me, a zoo. And all of the different parts of the brain are like different animals at the zoo. So we've got the amygdala, and the amygdala is maybe like a guard dog, and it's just there to protect all of the animals in the zoo. But when we get emotionally triggered, that guard dog, that amygdala starts barking. It starts running around the zoo, making all sorts of noise and chaos, activating and scaring all of the other animals in the zoo. Our amygdala is really what is going to wake up all the other parts of our brain, like the prefrontal cortex and the hippocampus and the hypothalamus. So imagine again that amygdala is like that guard dog and it's barking. We've been triggered. We're scared. There's a lot going on. And one of the things that I said that it activates or it wakes up is the prefrontal cortex. Now, imagine the prefrontal cortex as a wise owl. It's just there to help us make rational decisions. It's that part of our brain, that part of the zoo that is taking in the information and helping us decide what is logical, what is not, and it's going to keep us in that place of calm. So when the guard dog starts to bark and make that noise, that wise owl is going to get frazzled. It's going to get kind of chaotic and it's going to have a difficult time thinking. As a result, it's really going to have a difficult time staying calm. Because think about it. Would you be able to stay calm if there was a guard dog that was barking around you or at you, warning you of danger? Probably not. And neither can the wise owl, AKA the prefrontal cortex. And so it's going to get flustered and it's going to kind of shut down, making it difficult to focus on our rational thoughts. Another thing that the amygdala or that guard dog is going to wake up is our hippocampus. And let's imagine the hippocampus like a wise hippo, except this hippo stores our memory. So the hippocampus or the hippo is really going to take in all of the information and going to help us keep track of our memory and our thoughts. So when the guard dog is barking, that hippo is going to get just like the wise owl frazzled. The hippo, who maybe is used to roaming a little bit around, is going to get scared because the guard dog is barking and warning of a danger. That hippo is going to start to feel trapped and caged in its experience. Just like if you were to try and leave your house or leave your area and a guard dog was warning you, you might be kind of scared stepping out. Am I right? So the hippocampus, or the hippo, is going to feel trapped. And when it's feeling trapped, it's going to have a difficult time storing memory. Because it's having a difficult time storing memory, that's why when it comes to recalling or thinking about traumatic experiences or things that gave us some intense feeling of stress or anxiety, might have a difficult time for us to remember it in its full experience. That's why if you've had a traumatic childhood, you might have a difficult time remembering all the different childhood experiences that you had. And when I'm talking about trauma, I know there can be a lot of stigma or judgment, but let's just imagine trauma through the lens of not having our needs met. So when our needs aren't met and that guard dog is barking, warning us of the emotional triggers, that hippocampus, that hippo that stores our memory, is going to have it a little distorted. It might make it really difficult. So the guard dog, now, my goodness, that emotional trigger has activated it. The wise owl, the prefrontal cortex, is having a difficult time kind of making those calm, rational decisions. Our hippocampus, which is storing our memory, the hippo, is now having a difficult time in distorting our memory because it's going back to that place of trauma in that nervous system reactivation. And one of the last things that the guard dog, or the amygdala, is going to wake up is the hypothalamus. And let's imagine the hypothalamus as a skunk. And the reason that I'm asking you to imagine it like a skunk is not because it stinks, but because when it gets activated, when that guard dog starts barking at it, it's going to start to release different chemicals. It's going to release those chemicals of stress, which are going to be like adrenaline and cortisol. And so those chemicals, that that skunk release that is going off with those stress hormones, it's actually going to put us in that fight or flight or freeze. Those stress chemicals are going to be the ones that give us a rapid heartbeat, that make it difficult for us to have regular breathing. It's going to make our breathing really shallow. It's going to make our heart really race. And that is a part of the hypothalamus. Again, imagining it as a skunk that releases all of those stress chemicals, that stress smell, into the zoo, into the brain. I hope that you've really enjoyed this. Take a big breath with me. I know that when it comes to emotional triggers, like I said, it can be triggering, but I promise it's possible to really tame that guard dog and get the zoo back into a place of fun, fulfillment, and joy. How different would your life look if you were able to have a better understanding of your emotional triggers? Not just the way in which the science and the brain behind it works, but also how your body responds. Our body is like a beautiful, detailed map of the subconscious mind. It stores all of our memories and experiences, which is why when we get triggered, our zoo, our brain, is going to activate, but we're also going to feel it in our body. Maybe you feel yourself caving in. Maybe you feel some knots in your stomach. How different would your life look if you could really understand those physical reactions, control them in a place of joy and compassion? And also, how different would your life look if you were able to understand and know what your emotional triggers are? Because the truth is, it's amazing and so powerful knowing your brain and the science behind what's going on in the body. It's empowering, yes. But what can really make such a big difference is you understanding what your emotional triggers are. What are the things that activate your guard dog, that activate that amygdala going around and waking up all the other parts of the brain? I promise it's powerful to overcome emotional triggers because I did it. And so many other people have. And I know it can feel impossible. For me, I felt like everybody else could do it except me. If you're looking for any support around this, I've got your back. I know that I am just a lady on a screen talking to you if you're new, but I'm an embodiment coach and I started my journey in psychology and I hung up my shoes because I felt like it wasn't enough. I want to give more than enough to the people that I'm working with, which is why I got trained in somatic therapy, DBT, and all of these other things that don't really matter. But what matters is that I'm here for you to be the resource that I wish I had had in my journey of healing and personal expansion. If you want any support, I've got your back. You can book a breakthrough to trust call with me. It's a complimentary 30-minute call where I get to know you and your story. And we can really start to look at not only where your emotional triggers, but what are some other areas in your life where you're feeling stuck? And how can we transform any self-doubt that you're experiencing into self-worth? So you can say goodbye to feeling stuck and hello to fulfilling adventures. If you've got any questions, I'm here. I know that we are all in this together. And I will see you next week, Thursday, for our next Thursday Tickle, 9 a.m. Pacific Standard, noon at Eastern. And just remember, together we radiate, together we rise.